Hi, I'm Scott Jones, and this is the Attuned Parent Podcast. If parenting your teen feels heavier than you expected, you're not alone. On this podcast, we talk about what's really happening underneath anxiety, defiance, shutdown, and family conflict, using attachment science, nervous system awareness, and practical tools that actually work. Because behavior is protective before it's problematic, and regulated parents increase influence. Let's get started. Today, we're going deep into one of the most common and most misunderstood conflicts in modern family life: the phone, screens, and the teenagers in your life that just can't seem to put them down. So, once again, I've pulled questions from parents and listeners, and I have my producer, Steve, here to talk about this. We're going to go through them one by one and let's get into it. So, Steve, welcome back. Good to have you.
Great to be back. Really an important topic, I think, something that's very resonant with our listeners and I know the people that you work with on a day-to-day basis as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's dive into question number one. I know in episode 3, so you open up that episode with an image of a kid who used to talk and narrate their whole day, but then now they come home, they give a one-word answer, and then just go behind a closed door. Talk about why that moment hits so hard for parents. I know as a parent, I've experienced that, and I can empathize that that's a moment of doubt, shame, and feeling like, am I a failure?
Right, because in that moment, it's not really about the phone anymore, right? You just feel this distance, this vanishing that's happening. And I think that's why I started there. It's so important. That transition feels intensely personal. And like it's maybe something you did or something you're not doing. So I want parents to know right from the start that it's not personal. There's a lot going on that's driving this, and that our kids are dealing. We're going to talk about all the things they're dealing with in that digital world, but it's not that they don't love you anymore. It just has everything to do with their developing brains and how this digital world is interacting with them.
And I've heard you talk about before that the relationship is the intervention. And so in this portion of the relationship, that can feel really scary for a parent
Yeah.
because they feel like the carpet is getting pulled out from underneath them. But you also describe a teenage brain as a house that's mid renovation, which I love that. What does that actually mean as they interact with technology?
Yeah. 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 I think that image just resonates with me. They look like adults on the outside, right? Um, but if you think about that house, that maybe the foundation is there, the walls are pretty solid, but all the electrical wiring is still hanging out of the walls. And when I say electrical wiring, I'm talking about the neural circuits that handle things like long-term judgment, impulse control, emotional regulation. The part of their brain that says, I'm about to do this activity, but the last time I did that activity, I got a consequence. I didn't like the consequence, so therefore I won't do that activity. That part is not wired.
Mm.
And as parents, we're like, why aren't you reacting to the interventions I'm doing? Well, it's because that part's still growing, right? And the other part of that metaphor is just that the reward system, that part of our brain that's driven by dopamine, that's the most active it's ever going to be in their life. That's why their highs are so high, their lows are so low. That part is still developing too, right? So it's like you have a sports car, it's got the engine in it, the brakes are still on back order, and you got a brick on the gas pedal. So I think that as a parent, you just have to remember that, and you take that. I mean, that's normal teenage. That we were like that when we were teenagers too, but we didn't have smartphones,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the big difference, right? So I want parents just to start with that kind of a framework of neurochemistry development, what's going on inside of their brain, and how the smartphone is just designed to exploit it.
So a lot of our listeners ask the question of why can't they just put it down? Why can't my kid just put the phone down? What's the real answer?
Because a lot of really smart people make these apps that are designed, literally engineered to take advantage of their developing brains, right? They they're designed to not be put down. So uh, our kids are just fighting a losing battle. And to be honest, so are we. If we're going to talk about our kids a lot today, but let's be honest, we all have the same issues with smartphones to one degree or another, and with technology and screens. So there's a couple things to remember. The things that get us, number one, is novelty. That idea that I, one minute I might pull it up and it's something hilarious. The next minute it's something emotional. The next minute it's nothing. Every swipe is something new, and the brain loves new. Brain loves that.
Doesn't have to be good. Just
doesn't have to be good, just new, right? And then social validation. That's like the most common thing that all teenagers have is we want to belong, we want to fit in, we're trying to figure out where we belong in the world, and this digital world is all about social validation and figuring out where they fit. And then the third one, and maybe the most powerful one, is the unpredictability.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Vegas makes all its money. It's the slot machine effect. One minute I pull it, I don't get anything. Next minute I might get something. Next minute it's a huge payoff. Our smartphones do the same thing. So you hear a ding, oh, it's nothing. Hear a ding, it's my best friend. This is great. All those things combine to make that thing like this lethal. It just preys on our neurodeveloping brain that a teenager has.
And it feels like these are loops where we just keep coming back to the same challenge, the same problem. You've talked about 3 consistent loops that kids in particular, or teens, get stuck in. What are those 3 loops?
So we have the comparison loop, the performance loop, and the belonging loop. And I use these terms just to give us a language to talk about. They all have some things in common, right? But the comparison loop is just that idea that when your teen picks up the phone, they are immediately flooded with this optimized algorithm, right? That shows them the perfect whatever that they're seeing online. And whether consciously or unconsciously, we're always comparing that to our own life. And that's not fair. It's not logical, but our nervous system doesn't know the difference. So you see the perfect online world that your friends are supposedly living in. You compare that to your own, you're going to feel less than. So one trap I see teens get just stuck in is I'm just not good enough. And so I just need to keep trying to fit in. And the crazy thing is if you're feeling kind of less than, like you don't fit in, what do? You pick up the phone because that makes you feel good. So you get stuck in this loop that just kind of hard to get out of.
Now, one that you've said is even more powerful, more damaging, is the performance loop.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think about this one a lot because, I have parents say, well, kids today they're just lazy or there's just something wrong with this generation. And I don't think that at all. I just think that it's different because adolescence has always been about identity, figuring out who we are. But, when you think about you and I, when we were teenagers, you could do stupid stuff and only 3 of your friends knew.
Yeah.
Right? You could try on a hairstyle or a fashion choice, or you could go do something on a Friday night that maybe you wouldn't want your parents to know about. And you tried things on and you saw what fit, what felt good, what didn't feel good, you left behind. But you kind of did that in semi-privacy with people you were close to. Now all of that is happening completely publicly. It's always online, right? And so it's really easy to get stuck in this loop of I'm not really trying to figure out who I am. I'm trying to figure out what lands, what gets the most likes, what gets the most hits. And so I become somebody that's totally not who I am.
What about the belonging loop? This is one I think when you were talking about this that I could resonate with because there were times where I took the phone away from the kids, and there was almost a moment of panic, sheer panic. uh, Parents hear that and they think, or they see that and they think that their kid is being dramatic, which I felt myself. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why are they experiencing this sense of panic if the phone gets taken away?
Well, again, I think it's because of the way things have changed. This idea, this drive to belong, is, centuries and centuries old. If you didn't belong thousands of years ago, that means you couldn't be around the campfire and you couldn't stay warm and you couldn't hunt and you
Survival.
didn't survive.
Yeah.
So it's literally a survival technique for our nervous system, is we have to belong. But belonging is no longer just trying to fit into the lunchroom politics. It's now this huge algorithm that's global, right? And so for teenagers who are developmentally primed to care about peer relationships, it just gets huge. So when you take away a phone, you're not just taking away the keys to the car. You're kind of taking away their whole identity, right? And the panic is because they're thinking, well, what am I going to miss? Um, the inside jokes, the group chats, all the things that are constantly happening. There's that panic because, oh no, what if I don't? What if I don't know what's going on? I'm not going to be part of the group. One of the things, just as an aside, that I'm seeing with the teenagers I work with is, I don't know if you remember when you turned 16, but when I turned 16, like the second I turned 16, I was at the driver's license place getting my license.
Yeah. Yeah.
Car represented freedom and independence, and I there was nothing standing in the way of that, right? Kids aren't getting their driver's licenses anymore.
Mm.
They don't care because all of that is coming to them through their phone now. That sense of freedom, what they think is freedom, comes in that digital world. And so they're not living life. And the belonging loop is really about, how do I adjust myself to fit into this massive digital world that really, in lots of ways, is not even real.
Yeah, and it's so different than the way we grew up, and it's changed so much that it seems like a lot of parents just get it wrong because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you see parents doing where they're just not getting it? They're just completely getting it wrong, and they're trying to maybe apply old rules to a new game.
Yeah. Well, I can think of three things. You can probably put all of the things we do into one of these three categories. Maybe the most concerning is the parent who just doesn't understand how important it is. Like they're not paying attention to it
Yeah.
at all. Everybody else has a smartphone. I'm going to get my kid a smartphone. It's no problem. That's just what we do. And they're not really paying attention. That to me is the scariest mistake we can make as a parent. The other common ones are, number one, control. So, when things start going wrong or we start feeling a little antsy about what's going on with the screen time, we just clamp down, take it away, no more phone. That's it. Um, I've seen people. I've had experiences in my practice where parents will do things like, "Oh, you got a bad grade in chemistry. Give me your phone."
Mm.
And the phone may or may not be related to the bad grade in any way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so when we just rely on control and punishment, that can go sideways. And then the third way is when we just become overwhelmed and flooded as parents, and we just kind of throw our hands in the air and say, "I give up. Just do whatever you want." All three of those communicate something different than we intend to communicate as parents. I think they all communicate that you can't handle this, so I'm going to handle it for you. Which really what we're trying to do as parents is help them learn how to handle in a healthy way this digital world.
It does take education from parents. I think
Yeah.
back to when my kids were young and they were trying to explain to me how Snapchat was the way that everybody communicated. They would literally take a stupid picture of their foot or like half of their face and then communicate and send that out. And they showed me this.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me.
Yeah.
But I realized in listening to them, watching what their friends did, this is the way that they communicate. And that is the thing that, like, that's the language, I guess,
Mhm.
right? You've also talked about language and helping parents to shift their language for starting the conversation around the phone.
Yeah.
What does that sound like from your point of view?
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example of how it usually goes. It usually goes something like, "You've been on your phone too much lately. Give me your phone."
Mm,
Right? You're grounded. That's kind of a go-to parenting
cut off,
skill.
done.
Just cut it off.
Yep.
A more effective way, in my opinion, is something along the lines of, "Hey, I've noticed you've been on your phone a lot lately. What's going on for you?" And if you hear the difference, the first is just judgment with a consequence attached, right? The second is curiosity. And teenagers, they have a really accurate radar for whether they're being interrogated or they're actually being heard. They know the difference. So as a parent, we always want to be in a place where our teenagers feel like they have a voice, and that we're really interested in what's going on. So we're signaling, "I see you." And I genuinely want to know what's going on. And that might lead to a conversation that maybe the end result is, yeah, the phone does go away for a little while, but it starts from a much different place.
You've also mentioned, Scott, that, and I think you talked about this in our last episode, how it's important for parents to listen to their instincts, pay attention to their instincts. And so I think a parent might understand when their kid is stuck in a loop. But if we break it down for them and we give some practical brass tacks that they can look at to say, okay, how do I know which loop my kid is in?
Yeah.
What did they like? What would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, I think so. Some clues that they might be in the comparison loop is you're starting to see more kind of checking out. They're not engaging with you, with their in-person friends, with activities they used to like. Maybe they're saying things like, "I don't care," or you get this sense that they're feeling worthless. Um, and that's kind of the telltale signs of being in the comparison loop. And as a parent, what I want to do when I see that is it's all about validation. It's about creating spaces where they, at least at home, they can feel loved and seen. So that's maybe, if your kid's into baseball, you're going to the baseball game with them. You're finding ways to connect without the phone.
Which is a different mindset than when you and I grew up, right? We had things taken away when we
Yeah,
did something quote unquote wrong.
yeah.
And so taking a kid to a baseball game for
I just want to
connection,
reward the behavior. Well,
right?
you're
Yeah.
working on the connection.
And so it does change how parents respond if they understand the different loops.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we've talked
So
comparison
that's
loop.
comparison. Performance is, well, gosh, it's hard to go anywhere public anymore and not see young people performing on their phones.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're taking their Instagram reels, and they're not even paying attention to what's going on around them. So if you're seeing your child do that a lot, they're in that loop. They're trying to find their brand, and in that moment, I think what they need more than a lecture is, again, a safe place, a private space in your home. Your home just needs to be a place where they can be messy. Your home needs to be a place where they can, um, maybe kind of do stuff that to you seems crazy, but as long as it's safe, they can do it in your home. So, not complimenting, or sorry, not criticizing everything they wear, not criticizing everything they do, not asking for perfection in all the things they do. For example, not saying, "Hey, I noticed you got an A- on your test. What did you do wrong?"
Mm.
Catching yourself as a parent so you're not adding to that performance loop trap. And we do that without meaning to all the time as parents.
It sounds like a lot of this comes back to the creating the culture in the home so that it becomes the space so that your kids can grow.
Yeah. 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 The hardest thing is that, in that belonging loop, um, if, like you've already mentioned, if you take their phone away from them, you're really creating the monster that you're fearing, right? As soon as you take that phone, they're panicking because now they're missing out. And I'm not going to have any more friends. And you're taking everything away. So you have to be mindful of, what you're doing before it becomes a problem. It has to be a place, your home has to be a safe place before it becomes a problem. Um, if it's already a problem, I can give you some scripts to handle that.
So let's talk about those scripts. How does a parent develop a script to set a boundary around the phone so that it doesn't turn into a World War III?
Yeah. Well, I think that we have to be open and honest. Okay. So instead of saying something like, you're on your phone too much, you can't be on your phone anymore. Maybe something more along the lines of, hey, I know how important your phone is to you. I know it's how you connect with your friends. I know it's how you stay kind of in the loop. I get it. And I've also noticed that when you're on your phone late into the night or early morning, everybody feels it the next day. We all have a tough day the next morning. So we're going to try this. Phones on the charger in the kitchen, 10 o'clock every night. Let's just try it for a couple weeks and see if that changes the dynamic in our home. Now, you're probably going to get pushback. That's okay. The pushback gives you an opportunity to set a boundary with warmth. So you can say something like, I understand this is frustrating, but this is the decision right now. We're just going to try it for a couple weeks. That does a couple of different things. Number one, it validates the phone and them and the way they use the phone, right? You're not judging them for that. You're validating it's important. Number two, you're telling them why the boundary. It's not because I'm the adult. It's because, look, this is impacting your behavior and my behavior. It's impacting us all. And you set a boundary that's not infinite. It's finite. And that helps teenagers too. They can say, oh, I can deal with that for 2 weeks or a week or a weekend or whatever it is. And what ends up happening then is during that time, you have to make contact with them and help them notice things maybe are better. and what you'll often see is them self-correct.
Mm. That's got to be empowering for
Yeah.
both the parent and the child.
Yeah.
Speaking of empowerment and that dynamic between parent and child, one of your most viral social media videos has had to do with your reaction to parents shutting phones down, using monitoring apps, and you giving your perspective on that, which might be a little bit different than what other people, what their perspectives are.
Yeah.
How do you view monitoring apps like Bark? How do you see those?
Yeah.
Are they surveillance? Are they supportive? What's your thought?
I think that they can be a real positive tool. I have experience with Bark. There are other ones out there as well. But what I have found is if it's framed right, so if it's not about trying to catch them doing something wrong, it's not like they have a camera watching them all the time. It's more like we're building scaffolding around this thing. And the scaffolding can either get, more intense or less intense based on your child's behavior. You would never give your child, keys to the car without having him take driving lessons and know the laws of the road and all those things, right?
We hope not.
But we give we give our kids these phones with no boundaries, and you're giving them access to all the dark places in the world. It's kind of crazy. So what an app like Bark does is it gives you the opportunity as a parent to set some boundaries and some guidelines without having to resort to taking the phone away, and you give your child an opportunity to kind of show they can handle the technology appropriately.
Now, this seems to be such an important topic for our listeners. I could see us potentially answering more questions in the future. But if a parent were to really take one thing from this episode, what would you want it to be?
Oh, I think that, the biggest thing, I think our job as parents when it comes to technology is to help our children learn how to live in that world in a healthy way. It's not to just be referee, or it's not to uh, get them to not be on their phones, because let's face it, phones aren't going away. No, that's going away. So it's being a leader, and again, I always go back to this, but it's having a relationship in place that gives you influence, gives you some say in their life. Um, I don't think having phone battles is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just how we look at them, right? If we look at them as my kid is oppositional and I have to insert my power, you're going to have a lot of issues around phones, because the phone becomes a battleground and it becomes a symbol of freedom for your child. But if it's more, I want to help you use this in a healthy way, they can be upset with you at times when you have boundaries. But if you're doing it with compassion and love, and you're listening to them and you have curiosity about their world and their experience, they're going to see that. We know from all the research and all the science out there that when parents are involved and have boundaries, but also have warmth and love involved in a relationship, that's what kids respond to. And kids feel loved and empowered in those moments.
A lot of great questions from our listeners. If people want to submit questions for future episodes, where do they do so?
Yeah, you can send them to my email, the attunedparentpc@gmail.com. And if this episode is resonating with you, please share it. I think that my hope is obviously to give parents some tools and some resources, but I think as a community of parents, the more we talk about this stuff, the more we educate ourselves, and the more we educate our kids, the safer world our kid is going to live in. So spreading the word about this, sharing the podcast, it's not only going to help me, hopefully it helps you get the word out there, but it's going to give our kids a little safer world to live in, hopefully. So appreciate you listening.